Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Emma's Masterclass, Unlocking Funding Opportunities, a guide to local and international grants. My name is Michelle Ronquillo, and I'm Emma's event manager. Emma unites music manager trade organizations across 13 European countries with over 2,000 members. Our mission is to bolster European managers globally through the Empower program, encompassing education, advocacy, networking, and research. If you want to know more, please visit our website and follow us on social media. I'm going to put the links on the chat. And if you would like to connect with other managers and people attending this session, you can also do it by adding your contact details to the link. I'm also going to put it on the chat. Today's session is led by Jess Partridge, Executive Director of Emma and funding expert. Jess was also the lead researcher on the Music Mobility Funding Guide on for the Move. We have a little agenda for today.
Which I will share right now.
Thank you. So this is a tentative schedule. We will try to go through it. And yeah, I'm gonna let Jess now start the presentation. We will have some a Q&A after the presentation, so please stay with us.
Absolutely. I will take over and just introduce myself. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm the Executive Director of Emma, as Michelle said. And I am also a funding expert. I've worked across many European projects with different types of grants, from network grants to co-op grants and all of that. But today I'm going to focus a little bit more on kind of the individual grants, especially ones around mobility. So, sorry, I'm obsessed with clicking omit for people. I should just let everyone else do that instead of doing it myself. But anyway, so yeah, I've worked in many areas of the industry as well. So having a good understanding of how records and live and everything works has really supported this work. Through COVID, I ended up working a lot with venues and managers and festivals to get them funding, especially emergency funding during this time. That really sharpened my skills, and now I work with the MU, the Iris Academy, and many others to support their funding work. So I'm going to start off with giving you a little guide to the Music Mobility Funding Guide. So this is what Michelle mentioned. I'm going to go. I am just going to make it a bit smaller so I can see the whole thing on my screen. So this was developed by On the Move, and which is a great organization. If you don't already know them, this isn't meant to be a session for On the Move, but I really recommend getting acquainted with all of their stuff. They have lots and lots of funding guides. If you go to their resources section and you go to funding guides, you'll find lots of different culture funding guides for mobility in different countries. I'll just quickly show you. You can see they have them for loads and loads of different countries. So all the funding that's available for culture will be in that. But I was lucky enough to put together their music mobility funding guide. So this one is specific to music and has a focus on Europe. This is not the EU, it's Europe. So all European countries are included, although obviously some have a lot more funding options than others, I'm very sorry to say. It's a very long guide, I warn you, which is why I want to show you how to use it most effectively. So it's 507 pages. There are, I think, 430 funds in here. And it has a few useful features. So you can head down to the table of contents where you'll see all the countries listed and all the different funding. And I really recommend you can use the contents as a clickable guide. So we'll just head straight to Austria. So for each of the countries, we have a landing page which has information about other kind of organizations or things like export offices that might help you with mobility and might help you with funding. So sorry, it's a bit small. Let me see if I can just zoom in. There you go. So you'll find those key resources, Austrian Music Council, things like that. It's really, those are really useful. And I recommend if you're looking to go to a country or looking to develop some work in a country, whether it's a collaboration or anything, go to their page and see what their resources are, because you might find not just funding, but opportunities for support or outreach or finding partners or anything like that. So it could be a list of venues or something like that that you'll find that could be useful for your development. So really recommend that. And then you'll see each of the funds are listed pretty straightforwardly. The funder itself here with English, below it, the type of funding that it is, whether it's public or private, anything like that, and whether it's active at national or regional level. There, for some countries, there's like significantly more regional funding than there is national funding, because that's the way they divide their budget. So they divide it by the regions, and then the regions are in charge of distributing it. I think Austria is actually particularly one of those. And it's just really important to remember if you're trying to work on projects going into countries. So anyway, moving on, you'll have the name of the fund, which sometimes useful to describe it, the language of the scheme, which mostly is what language you apply in, which is quite useful. The art forms covered, so that this one's multidisciplinary, not just music, which means that obviously you know immediately you're going to be up against more competition. And what music genres it covers, quite a few of the funds and quite a lot of funding you'll find covers popular music. They don't define what popular music means, but a lot of the time this means kind of anything outside of classical and jazz and opera and things like that. So it'll be commercial music in a way. The types of mobility, or the types of that you can fund for this with this fund. So there's a lot of different options, and you'll see it varies quite a lot. So it could be touring, it could be travel grants, it could be capacity building, development. There's a few scholarships, residencies, that kind of thing. It's pretty useful again to know immediately whether it's the type of thing that you want to apply to. Then we've got some information about the eligibility. So again, this can be pretty enlightening on whether you can use it or not, just whether you're a citizen or a resident. Sometimes it won't matter, you just have to have an address or that you can use there. Sometimes you have to be show your citizenship, or sometimes be living there. So yeah, you'll get some kind of insight there. Sometimes this can get quite long and detailed, so for some of them you'll see there's a big chunk of writing. Then there's something about destinations. Now this bit isn't super clear, I think, so it's important to explain what you can apply for here is outgoing mobility or incoming mobility. Just looking, these are all outgoing. So it's saying you can go worldwide, basically, with this, outgoing worldwide. It means that you're not limited to a specific number of countries or whatever. Some of them are really, really limited, like you can only do projects with the countries next door. It's very, very specific funding for a very, very specific reason. But this one, for instance, is super open. It's just worldwide. And some of them you'll find that they will fund incoming mobility. It's actually quite regular. So yeah, here you go, incoming mobility, which means that it will fund people going to the country, which is why sometimes eligibility means you do not need to be based in the country, because there are some incoming funds that will pay for you to go there. Some arts councils particularly work to attract international bands, artists, professionals to come to their country. So some of them will have that. Sometimes you'll need a partner on the ground to apply on your behalf. Sometimes you won't. There is no quick way of looking for all of the incoming mobility funds. I would suggest that you just make sure if you plan to go to a country, you do check whether there are any incoming mobility funds. So then there's a description of the funding, which is great, and some information on criteria as well. And then it tells you what kinds of costs are covered. We only include ones that cover at least part of the travel, and not always accommodation, but they have to cover some of the travel. If it doesn't, then it doesn't count. I mean, obviously it's mobility funding, although there are some exceptions for digital only. So people trying funding for people to do digital projects, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pay for travel. You can see the size of the grants generally, although some of them were very, very difficult to find out actually how much you could apply for, which is wild because it feels like a very basic need. And the currency and the URL, and when we last checked it. Obviously, some of these are checked quite a long time ago now, it's over a year, and we will be updating this guide as we go. But yeah, that's pretty much a straightforward introduction to this guide. I also just want to say, these are for reoccurring funds. If you are looking for one-off opportunities, I really recommend checking the open calls section on the Move website or signing up to their mailing list, because you will find there some other funding opportunities that are one-off, like this, for instance, Nordic Baltic residency, that kind of thing. And you can even say, go to music and sound for music and sound specific. Although I would say cross-disciplinary is really important to keep an eye on, because that often includes music and sound, even if it's not only for music and sound. Okay, sorry, that was really quite a long intro. You can, as Michelle said at the beginning, there's a contact sheet in the chat where you can put your contacts in so you can connect with others. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter as well, where you can find out about more events like this. So now I kind of wanted to go over, as well as the funding guide, some kind of key funding tips. As I said, sorry, here it is. I have so many different windows open now. From my experience working on many different funds in many different countries, there are the standard questions that people are looking for you to answer. So I thought it might be useful to go over it, and I'm happy to share my slides at the end as well. And I'm also really want to emphasize that I'm very happy to answer questions as you go. If you do have any questions about the guide, especially, please throw them in, and there's a link, thank you Maria, to the guide there. Yeah, and I will share my slides afterwards. Anyone, you're very welcome to this. So before we start, what is your experience of funding? Who here has applied for funding? I'm just going to quickly look at the chat, or you can say yes, put a thumbs up. Yeah, I can see quite a few. Not as many as I thought, but quite a few of you have definitely applied for funding. So it can be a bit of a painful process. I think, it's well known for being difficult. However, I think there's a lot of benefits to it. Even if you don't get the funding, I think the process of applying for funding, working out your aims, understanding what your project is super important. And can really provide a backbone even if you don't get the funding. So what we're going to cover in this is like just the basics of what you can get funding for, what you need to do before you start, what the common questions look like, and what not to do in your application. So there are many different types of funds, but I'm not going to be looking at European funds so much in this. They are a little bit more complex. And so when I say, oh, they're looking for this to be simple, or they're looking for your project to make sense and be straightforward, yes, that is still true, but there is a level of complexity that doesn't exist when it comes to maybe recording projects, touring projects, collaboration, songwriting, all of these kind of things, which are quite straightforward with this is what I want to do, this is the impact I hope it has, and this is how I'm going to do it, which is kind of what most of the funding opportunities are looking for. So I think that sometimes it's important to remind people what you can actually apply for funding for, because they don't always realize, and when I talk to artists especially, it can be that they don't have any idea that this money exists and it is for them. So recording and releasing, touring live and international, songwriting, collaborations and residencies, they are all quite straightforward project grants generally. Like I'm going to do A and B and it's going to equal C, quite straightforward. Learning and development grants, which is the final one I put here, are often a little bit different. They are for obviously your learning and development, but they don't have a project or a kind of aim in mind that is a physical product or a recording or something like that. The aim is the development. And I actually find, for instance, at the moment in the UK, the DYCP applications are open, developing your creative practice. And I find that a lot of people really struggle to go from this like project plan to development plan. They are definitely, they're definitely related, but you just have to think slightly differently about how to do them. So just bear that in mind that, again, some of the things might apply more to the project type things than the learning and development. So how do you design a project that has strength for applications? Almost all projects and funders want you to connect with audiences. You kind of have to think of a funder as a company. I know it sucks to have to think about it like that, but if you think about, they have their aims, they have to impact, and they have to show results in order to continue getting the money that they're then giving you. It's a shame, but it is just the case. So reaching people and connecting with audiences, even if it's, I'm songwriting now, but eventually this is going to reach an audience, is super important for almost all funders. Almost all creative or cultural funding needs to have a creative element. Again, that sounds obvious, but a lot of people want funding for like marketing, for instance, and you have to be careful because a lot of funds won't fund just the marketing. They need some kind of creative element, or they need you to be filming a video or something like that, which is then a creative element, even if it does have the marketing value at the end. Almost all projects are stronger when they build on your previous work. If it's something totally outside of what you've done before, or you're bringing in, say you're an artist and you're bringing in like, I want to do special effects, or I want to do something crazy on stage, the really important thing is to show that you have that expertise. Again, if you're thinking about it like a company, they don't want you to fail. So you need to be, basically the application is showing them that you have the expertise and the ability to deliver the project that you're identifying. So really, really make sure you're building on your work and your and it's clear development as well. Anything that is actually building, not just replicating what you've done before, will have a better result. And projects that involve others in some capacity, again, it's really easy to just concentrate. I want to record an album, I want to do it this way. I want to go on a tour and I want to do it this way. But you really have to think about everyone else who's involved and who can kind of speak to your excellence, whether that's a label, whether that's a promoter, whether it's a venue. There are so many people involved in projects that you really do have to bring it out. And if you don't really feel like you do have anyone else involved, it can be very positive to look at where you could bring someone else's either expertise or support. So getting started, before you start your funding application, I would say, first of all, get your project idea, work out the core elements of it. Make sure you research your basic costs before you start. Again, it sounds obvious, but people don't always don't always actually research. They just kind of assume they know. You generally have to back it up within funding applications. So if you don't know, it's going to be really hard to do that. You need a timeline, an idea of when you want to do it. Almost all applications ask for this, and I will go into that, but it's really important to have some idea. And a good idea of your desired outcome and who it will reach. And this is not just, I will record an album and therefore I will have an album. Your desired outcome is actually the thing beyond the album. So, okay, what I want to do is build an audience, and in order to build an audience or to reach my fans or build on some work I've done before, I need to record this in order to do that. Again, I think a lot of people get confused with the aims, and they say, well, my aim is to record an album, or my aim is to do a tour, my aim is to learn how to produce. But actually it's generally the thing after that, the reaching the audience or the building your mailing list or whatever it is, increasing your income, diversifying your income, whatever it is, those things are your actual aims. So yeah, ideal projects are easy to understand and not too complex. And again, this does not apply to European projects because they are hard to understand and often complex. However, for most regular funding, don't try and add loads of bits in. Oh, I actually would love to create a video as well, but it doesn't really fit with my project because I'm not going to the release stage. So that it can make it messy and really not back up your aims. So always think about what your aims are, and does everything make sense to get to that aim? If anything feels like it doesn't quite make sense, I'd remove it. So yeah, strong aims and clear impacts on your career, impacts on others, impacts on audience, just really show that you'll be doing that. So I'm going to head to some frequently asked questions. If you have any other frequently asked questions, you may put them in the chat now. It's a good time. So how confirmed does everything need to be? Almost all funders are fine with you not having things 100% confirmed. They understand that if you do not get the funding, you might not be able to, well, you're not going to be able to pay someone, so they're not able to confirm until they know that they can get paid, that kind of thing. Sometimes it can feel like a chicken and egg situation, but generally you think of a funding application as kind of your ideal. This is what I want to happen. So if it comes down to it and, the producer you've put into the application isn't available anymore, it's generally all right. Most funders will not even ask you to tell them. Some will, but they're not going to have a go about it. It's just the funding application is there to show you understand what type of person, what type of thing is actually applicable for this project. So it's more of a marker than anything else. Do I need to put my money into? A lot of funders do ask you to at least co-fund part of it. And this can come from ticket sales, pre-orders, actual orders, your savings, previous amounts, maybe your PRO payments, anything like that can go into it. I would just say be careful, and we'll get to the budget in a minute, but I would just say be careful when it comes to guessing how many you're going to sell, how much money is going to come in during the grant period. Can I pay myself? Almost all funders let you pay yourself now. It's important to check. They don't always give guidance, but in the UK we have the Musicians Union, and I know that there's a few other organizations across Europe that will tell you kind of standard rates of pay. I would say 150 euros for a day's work. You should never, which basically it should never be less than minimum wage, which means actually thinking about, okay, well, if this is a day and I'm working 8 hours, how much per hour am I going to need for it to make sense? I have seen applications turned down when people put too high of a day rate in, but also seen them turned down if you put too low of a day rate in. So really consider it. Ask the funder. but also look at kind of going market rates, you know, in terms of a day rate for someone that's a bit higher level. 250 is quite regular. Someone that's kind of administration, 200 is regular. 150 for maybe kind of intern level, depending on your country, obviously. But that is definitely a range that I would have not seen turned down. And I would say also that sometimes you can go quite a lot higher for super specialized people. Can I do recording and touring? So a lot of projects will let you combine the two. And a lot of project grants, like Arts Council grants and things like that, will let you combine the two. I would say I would be very, very careful about overcomplicating your project. And so the next question, can I apply for more than one fund at once? A lot of funds, that's totally fine. But maybe if you're doing like recording and touring, you apply for recording to one and touring for the other. Or maybe you apply for the songwriting part of your fund and your recording part or releasing part to somewhere else. This will help make sure that your projects kind of stand alone. And if you don't get the second part of the funding, you can still actually do what you said you're going to do, because that's the most important thing. I mean, I've flagged a lot of funds in the past when I've been assessing applications for the fact that they do have another fund in there that they have not confirmed. And so it's not clear to me, are they actually going to be able to do the project? If we give them the money, but the other person doesn't, is it going to happen? And again, this is the biggest worry when it comes to being a funder, that the project will not happen. So it can leave you in this space of being very unclear. And what does it mean if I can't make a profit? So almost all funding will not let you apply for something that's going to make a profit, okay? This just means that during the grant period, you cannot make a profit. This does not mean that if you have a record and you put it out and it's on sale, that you can't make a profit ever from it. It means that just during like the 9 months or 2 years or whatever the project length is, that you only ask for the amount you need in order to complete the project. It's not about making a profit. It's about only asking for what you need in order to break even. Questions? No? I'm expecting some, so, you know, make sure you think of some and take this opportunity to ask, because yeah, it's a good time.
I have a question from Vanessa.
Mm-hmm.
If you're putting your own income to support your project, does it make sense to put in your paying yourself? Is it a downfall not to put you are paying yourself?
It really depends on the project. I think a lot of places now, so the problem is that if it's like a 6-month project and you know that you're pretty much going to be working on it like a lot, so then it becomes like 3 days a week or something like that, then you can very quickly bash through the like limits of what you can apply for funding for. So yeah, I would say it's not like bad to not pay yourself, and even if you're putting your own money in and then that's going to you, that's fine as well. I would probably jig it round so it didn't look like it was going to you, it looked like it was paying. Sometimes they tell you exactly that you have to show exactly what your money's covering and what their money's covering, so that they can tell that they're not funding anything that they wouldn't deem acceptable. Yeah, so I would not make it that your money was coming in and going straight to you. But it does, but it is fine, and you should pay yourself at some point if you can, especially for bigger projects that are longer. I know it can get very expensive very quickly, but again, you have to think about realistically what you can do in that time, and if it means that if you can't get paid because it's not within the bounds of the fund amount, then maybe they're looking for smaller projects.
Oh, I think I'll explain it a bit better if I can.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just saying that most people, if you're going for small, like for example, is it help musicians? They do their releasing,
Mm-hmm.
record and release. and then an artist would be putting their own money in terms of paying for studio time. So that it makes no sense them saying, oh, I'm going to pay myself a wage. So even if the project's for like a year, because they say that it has to happen within a year, they're putting money to pay for all the studio fees. So
why would it then be paying them? I get what you mean, absolutely. And I think for those kind of small funds, they would expect maybe that you didn't pay yourself. But again, I don't think it's totally beyond the realms of like possibility that if you needed a day in the studio or something like that, like a very specific thing, you said, okay, we're going to pay everyone for this. And yeah, your money's coming into it, but also like realistically, in order for you to do that, you might need that time.
Okay, that's fine.
So yeah, I can see some other questions. Looking forward to learning more about EU funds. Yes, hopefully you caught the guide there. What are some examples of paying yourself as an artist? So the Musicians Union in the UK has really good breakdowns of payment for artists, especially in terms of what's expected for rehearsals, what's expected for commissions, all of these things, and it's very, very detailed. I'll send over the link afterwards. I don't want to, might have too many tabs open at the moment, but that's a good starting point. But you should always look in your own country to see if there are the possibility to find out what the kind of standard rates are. And yeah, rehearsals can be paid for, recording days, touring days, all of these things can be covered. Andrew Lisa said, if I'm applying as business, is there anything different about paying myself or rent offices, etc.? It really depends on the fund, but generally no. Some funds will only allow you to apply if you are a business or a registered like sole trader or something like that. So those ones maybe they will ask some more questions. I would say when it comes to paying yourself for rent and office, things like that, it gets so complicated if they don't give rules around like this. Some of them will be like, you can do at most 17% of your costs or something like that, like make it very specific. But when they don't have it, it becomes really difficult. So I would say it's better to pick a couple of things and ask them to pay specifically for those. Like, okay, I need this internet connection specifically, or speed up of internet connection, or yeah, I need to cover my phone bill or something like that, rather than going for a percentage of your office of rent, because it gets really, really complex. So questions you might be asked, these are the kind of 5 areas that almost every single fund asks you to cover. Your experience so far, what you've done, why you're doing this project essentially, your clear project outline and the activities that will be that your project will consist of, the audience you would like to reach and how you will reach it, your timeline, and your budget. So we're going to look at each of these hopefully a little bit closer. I'm going to go through it as quickly as possible. So project outline is where we're starting, which is not actually where this started, sorry. But your project outline, a lot of projects are great at identifying, like, I want to do a new EP, but as I was saying, like a lot of them don't identify this kind of wider aim. Why am I doing this project at this time? Is it because I need to build my fan base? Is it because I need to follow up on a record that did really, really well and I can't afford to do it otherwise? Is it because I need my recordings to be a step above where they were before in order to secure the kind of opportunities that I want, like live and all of those kind of things? So I would always say, before you start your application, you should identify like 3 or 4 core activities for your project. Again, that sounds obvious, but if you're just doing a recording project, your core activities might be, you know, organizing everyone to participate, a few days in the recording studio, post-production, and then pressing or something like that. Like those are your core activities. And then for each of those, you need to kind of work out who's going to be involved, if there's a partner, where it's going to be, and just break it all down. then it will really help you see exactly the things that you can pull out of it for the application. And if it's a more audience related project, then kind of talk about the audience for each of these main activities as well. Think about your activities before you start your application. Do they clearly lead to the outcome that you've already identified? Do they make sense together, or is there something else that might make them stronger? And how else could you achieve your goal? I really think that just questioning, okay, well, what else could I do to achieve this wider aim, could help you make your project stronger. Or it could change it entirely. You could be like, actually, no, do you know what? If I want to develop my audience, and actually the best way is to spend some real time online, getting to know people, working it out. Maybe I'm going to develop a proper community space, whatever it is that you're going to do. There just could be a lot of value in looking at how else you could achieve that goal. Which is why it's important to have that wider aim, because when it comes to, you know, recording an EP or something like that, there's not many other ways to achieve that goal. It's a pretty straightforward goal. Here's some real example questions. In your project, in your own words, tell us what your project is. Outline the activities of your project. I just want to say the thing that I see the most on this question is people not actually describing their activities. They start describing, well, I made a record and I thought it was really great, and I want to, I have written all these songs, and that's not what they're interested in. They want to know what is going to happen during the grant period. That was before the grant period. Your inspirations, I've written these songs, that was all before the grant period. You need to talk about what will happen and break down the activities during the grant period. It is a mistake I see constantly, and honestly, you cannot be clear enough about those activities and what will happen, because they want to know. I often kind of say that the budget, this project description question, and the timeline are a triangle, and they should all completely feed into each other. Everything in the timeline should be pretty much mentioned in some way or covered in this project description, and should be in the budget. Everything should be aligned. There should be no surprises, because I get to timelines a lot and I see like a random workshop or something cool that hasn't been mentioned anywhere else, and it's a surprise, and it makes your project weaker. So moving swiftly on, your experience so far, a lot of applications will ask this. This is mostly them looking to not just hear about how great you are. You really should show off in these questions. I always say, if you think you're showing off, you're probably only just bigging yourself up enough. You really go for it. But it's also to show your growth and your progression, and that you're ready for this opportunity and that you can deliver it. Some funders will ask questions like, have you done this type of project before? Have you had this experience? But not all of them will. So this is your opportunity to show them that you can do it. So things to remember. I would generally start, well, a lot of people start with, I've been playing the piano since I was 5. No one cares that you've started playing the piano when you're 5 at the funding office, I promise. And I'm really sorry about that. But what they want to hear about is your more recent achievements. So I would always have a clear sentence about what it is that you do. So introduce, talk about your genre, talk about whether you sing with singer-songwriter, like whatever it is, I play the trombone, anyway, whatever it is. And I've been playing in this amazing outfit for 5 years, the last 5 years or something like that. And then kind of go into your key achievements. Again, remember that actual humans are reading these applications, so loads and loads of dense information is very hard to compute. So having it in an orderly way is really useful. So just don't be afraid to use bullet points as well, things like that. Generally, I don't know of any fund that will not accept you writing in bullet points. I'm sure there's some out there, which is weird, but generally it's totally fine. So you can give a couple of your key achievements. I would say make sure that you mention your partners and collaborators. It's really important to show that other people have bought into your work in some kind of way. If you don't have that, it's totally fine. Even just playing a good or recognizable venue is important. But if you are going to mention that, then make sure you explain what that means in context. Remember that a lot of these funds will be read by someone that's from a totally different part of the creative industries. So it could be someone from like circus reading your application. They don't know what it means to sell out the Botanique. Like they might not have any idea what the capacity is, what that means culturally, how great it is. They don't know what it means to be on New Music Friday. Like you have to talk about the impact. You have to show that, okay, well, this caused this growth. We were on New Music Friday, which increased our streams by 100 times. Like that kind of information immediately gives them context without having to give them too much information, especially if you have quite low streams or something like that, which is totally fine. It's not about having the most amount. It's not about having the biggest numbers. It's about giving them enough context so they understand that you're right for this opportunity. So yeah, that kind of covers number 4. Number 5, group achievements where possible. Don't list every single one. Don't list every single review you've got, every single venue you've played. Try and put them together to say, yeah, we've had more than this many reviews. We've played to more than this many people. We've played in this many countries, you know, bringing it together so it sounds more impressive. And again, because the person on the other side is only human, and so it's much more easily recognizable, much more quicker recognizable as much more quickly recognizable as an asset or something that you've achieved. When it comes to this question, always think about how you can show your growth, not just what you've achieved, but how you didn't just magically get to the level you're at. There was a lot of work that went into it, so it does count to show that you've worked up from something. Think about who the funder might know. Who else do they work with? Have you worked with them? Have you had like experience with them? Because it does make a difference. Again, think of it like a company. If you come into the company and say, yeah, we've worked with a bunch of your partners, they go, okay, this makes sense. We understand why we should be working with you. And think about what relates back to your project. Don't just list stuff that is completely unrelated to what you're applying for, because they want to see that you can do the project again. So you need to show them. Example questions. Please tell us about yourself and your creative practice. Tell us about your achievements so far. Again, these are basic, but these are from actual applications. Your target audience and who is involved is a very regular question. And this can kind of generally be like broken down into who you're aiming your project at. Even if you are not getting to the point of putting it out or not getting to the point of doing the performance, who will it eventually reach is generally who you need to be thinking about. And your partners and collaborators. So that's the other group of people to think about. When thinking about target audiences, they generally want some specifics, like actual specifics about who you are aiming for. So rather than just saying rock fans, you need to kind of identify what that looks like. What bands are they fans of? What brands do they buy into? Where do they hang out? Like really think about these things. And I generally think that it can be very useful to think about who you would aim your advertising at. So if you're on Facebook, Instagram ads, and you're typing in the like fans similar to, who are you typing in there? Because that's the kind of thing you need to be saying, you know, readers of this magazine or this blog, or people who are in the street teams or really passionate about music. It's like really working out where you're kind of naming people. And again, there's a few ideas here: audiences of similar artists, fans of brands, things like that. People in a specific location, especially for touring or one-off events, can be super important. And it's fine identifying the audience you already have, which is important. I see a lot of people answer this question with like, well, if you go onto our Instagram stats, you'll find that like 48% of people are women and 50% of them are men, and they're roughly aged this, which is fine. But you can say we're aiming at our fans that we have at the moment and more people like them, which looks like this, but also who else are you hoping it reaches? It's not really enough just to talk about the audience that you have at the moment, because if it was just reaching the audience you have at the moment, then you wouldn't really be looking for funding. You'd hope that you were able to get beyond that. You know, that's one of the reasons that you want to have investment. So partners and collaborators, these, you will often be asked what your partners and collaborators are, who they are. And again, I see a lot of people skip over things like venues and promoters and record labels and agents, because they're like almost like, oh, well, it's a given I'm working with these people. But it helps to list them. It really helps to show that you have a lot of people on your side and a lot of people rooting for you and working for the same thing on this project. So yeah, places that might be hosting your work are important. Organizations or companies that support you, that could be management organizations, that could be agents, collaborators, anything like that. Other practitioners that you need to help deliver the project, whether that's a engineer, mastering, anything like that. And those who will creatively contribute, so maybe session musicians, maybe someone's going to do a remix, anything like that. That's totally legit to put in here. So next up is timeline and budget. I think I'm mostly on time. I think I can do this. In 5 minutes, we got this. So timeline and budget. What should it look like? Different funders do want different levels of information. I know, for instance, there's one UK funder that only allows you to put 6 things in your timeline. That's it. So you have to break it down into those kind of 6 core activities, and you can't do anything more. So that's fine, but generally I would say make sure you have the key moments. I see a lot of people miss out the marketing campaigns. So they'll be like, this is all the things we're doing to record. And then we release it. And it's like, okay, but surely at the release point is where the work kind of starts in terms of promotion, because then it's out. So really look at making sure you include that. Although it has to be within the grant period, remember that. So I would always recommend not, if you're doing like a release project or a touring project, don't just end it at the release date, don't just end it at the end of the tour. Try and have some evaluation or some kind of wrap up promotion of like, oh, look how amazing our tour was, or something like that, and include that, because it really shows that you're thinking through the whole project and not just, right, I'll throw it out into the world and hope that it works out. You shouldn't need to explain who anyone is within this part, like within the timeline. You should have already explained it. They should already know. It should already be in there. Timeline is generally, I don't know of any applications where it's a case that you should be listing the people and describing their role. Keep it all very clear and straightforward, and it should have all the activities that you've identified so far. As I said, this triangle of like budget, timeline, project description, it should have all of those things. Dreaded budgets. Everyone hates a budget, but again, really, really important. So most applications for funding will say that you can't make a profit. We've already gone over that. During the actual funding period, you cannot predict that you will have money left over at the end. You have to only be asking for the money you need. Many applications will ask how you've worked out your figures. This is mostly so they know it's realistic. And again, they don't want you to be under or overestimating how much you need. So you can say things like, I've got a quote, I've researched it. They often want to know, you know, like even in EU grants, they want to know that you've kind of looked for the cheapest option possible, or that you've taken a number of quotes and really worked out what one makes the most sense. Is not just, hey, I'm hiring my pal. They really want to know that you have thought about it. Carefully consider all the money you have coming in. It can really strengthen your project to show income. So ticket sales, pre-orders, streams, all of that kind of things. This does not apply to PRO payments. I would say, you know, they come so far after the grant period. I would not include that generally as income. If you're putting some of those in, then it's kind of like a personal investment within the project, and you can put it as your own contribution, but I wouldn't consider it as income during the project. That's the difference between the two. Don't be afraid to ask for more, especially to cover artistic costs. If you have some room left you don't get any points for asking for less. So they would, again, much rather that everyone was covered, that you had enough money, rather than you really trying to push it. And again, I see this quite a lot where projects are just really, really ambitious, which is great. But I look at the budget and I think this is not possible. And I've seen plenty get rejected for that reason. So be careful about it. Make sure all your activities are covered and mentioned in some way, even if in kind. Budget tip, if you're struggling to start, I would just write out your timeline, work out the timeline first, and then make sure every part of your timeline is covered in terms of budget. So overall tips, answer the questions being asked. Again, sounds basic, but it's very easy to go into your own interpretation or adding extra information in. Generally, they just want to know the information that they've asked for. They will have, if you go into the guidance for the funding and you see like a list of things they want to be covered, make it exceptionally clear that you have covered all of those elements. It's a tick box exercise as an assessor. You come in, you go, okay, have they covered this? Yes. Have they covered this? Yes, they covered this. So make it as easy as possible, and then they will actually have more time to spend reading and interpreting your application. Give things enough context. Again, it's not good enough just to say, I sought out this venue or something like that. You need to make sure it's really clear what that means and what the impact was. Use bullet points, almost always fine. Again, never seen it not be fine. As someone who's reading a lot of text, bullet points can really help break up the text and help quickly and clearly communicate the project. So do you think about that? Connect with others. If you are not connecting with others in your project already, how can you? Like, really, it does benefit your application to bring other people into it and to collaborate, get support from other people. So if there is opportunity to do it, I really recommend that you look for it. And show your personality. You can totally show your personality in this. Okay, so that was my presentation, but I can see some questions, so I'm gonna get straight into it. So if a funder says their average grant is 10K, but the max is 15K, what's the common sense place to pitch? It's for what you need. Honestly, if you need 15 grand, but their grants are mostly 10, there are some funders, especially like Nordic funders, that tend to reduce their grants down or offer you less than you need necessarily, than you've said that you need. I really, really think that generally, if you can show that, yeah, this project makes sense, these are the costs I need, then, and it's closer to 15, then just ask for 15. And again, some funders will come back with like a counter offer, but generally it's about the fact that some people will ask for less. You know, some people will look at their projects and only need 5K, so it ends up averaging out. Like I see this quite a lot with, say, DYCP in the UK, which is a 12 grand max, and often people will go for like 6, 7, and that, yeah, it ends up averaging out, so it's fine. Applying for grants has forced me to write a plan, and whether or not I've gotten the grant has always helped me choose what to focus from. Yes, absolutely. I recommend filling in a funding application just for the experience, gaining the experience, articulating your project, because it will always come in useful, even if it's the fact that you are at a event or something and someone's asking you about your plans and you know how to articulate it because you have written it out before. Cool. Are there any other questions? If you want to apply for the max grant, but you can expect some sort of income for the project, is it okay to exceed the max grant and expenditure and expected income amounts that balance out in the end? Yes, absolutely. That's how it works. You put in your money, you ask for the max grant, and then overall, I see this a lot, say with PRS Foundation, where the grant, it can be crazy actually. I've seen people ask for like 5K and the which is the maximum, and the actual project budget is over 100K, which feels like, why are you asking for 5K? Like, why do you need 5K when with all of this? But if it's for a specific part of the project and it makes sense, it can totally work. Any recommendations to get money for music videos, audio visual stuff? That can be harder, definitely. And it depends on what country you're in. But if you want to say what country you're in, that would be useful. But I would definitely look through the funding guides, especially on the move. And maybe not just the music one, because there are some audiovisual funds. I also wanted to say, when it comes to looking through the guide, remember they are the grants only for mobility. So if there's a funder that you're like, oh, they seem to be funding kind of interesting activity in my country, always check out the actual funder website, because there might be funds that are not for mobility, that only cover activity in the country that they're in, but are available to you. They would not be in the funding guide because they would not cover mobility. So always check the funder as well as the guide. Okay, with Estonia, I actually, unfortunately, do not know. I did do the Estonia section of the funding guide, but I can't remember off the top of my head what funds are available. I would definitely talk to Music Estonia and see if they have any ideas, and also check the funding guides as well. I would also say with audiovisual stuff, if you can kind of describe it as a collaboration rather than just like, hey, I want to make a music video. If you're talking about, oh, I want to collaborate with another artist, then you're more likely to be successful. Have you a resource online for opportunities for music residencies in the UK and the EU? Franklin, check the On the Move guide, check On the Move open call section. They come up really regularly. There are some residencies. I'd also keep an eye on the, there's an open call for residency funding at the moment from Culture Moves Europe. They will announce the places that will get funded to run residencies, so it's worth keeping an eye on that. But also there are some crazy ones on the open call section of On the Move that you would just be like, wow, I've never heard of anything like this existing. And they only list ones that they pay for your travel and accommodation. They do not list any that you, because there's some residencies where you have to pay, but that's not the ones that they would list on the website. Okay, I think I think we've finished.
We did it on time. Absolutely.
If anyone does have any other questions, feel free to reach out. You can get me at jess@emma.community. I don't have time to like feedback on applications specifically. That's something that would generally cost. But if you have like little questions or something you think that I can go over really quick, then I'm totally open to chatting and getting to know more of you. And yeah, I think we'll send over the presentation and the links and stuff as well.
Yes, just make sure that everybody's subscribed to our newsletter, because we will let everybody know when it's up and on our YouTube channel.
I'm really glad that this was valuable. Thank you so much for saying that. And yeah, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hope to see you in the upcoming masterclasses. Just check our website for the next events. Okay. See
Bye.
you. Bye.